You give a lot of advice to lawyers. What are some bad recommendations that you often hear, or bad advice that you hear being passed around that maybe you disagree with? That sometimes you hear lawyers giving one another.
Well, I'll start with the most obvious one, which is every lawyer should write a book. Absolutely not.
Mhm.
The reason I say that is that some people, when I was probably 5 or 6 years old, I was writing sports magazines. That's what I love to do. And they're actually bound and they've got titles, pictures, the whole thing.
That's pretty cool.
I love to write and I've got it in my blood to write. And so when somebody comes to me and says, should I write a book like The Power of a System or The Law Firm of Your Dreams?
Mm.
My first initial reaction is absolutely not, unless you're dying to write a book. Now, some people like our friend Jim Hacking, he just loves to be on YouTube. You know, he'll go to court, he'll be on YouTube. Great for him. And that builds his practice. He gets 40% of his clientele from referrals through YouTube. Now, YouTube is not necessarily my thing, so I'll do it a little bit here and there, but I'm not really that pumped about it. But
Yeah.
writing a book, if you set me down with a laptop and say, here, you've got 2 to 3 hours, I'm in heaven at that
Mhm.
point. So I'm just typing away. And then over the course of time, we have a book. So the reality is bad advice. And you know, the other thing is, Andy, people will say it's so easy to write a book, just dictate it and someone will get it on down on paper. No, it's not. It's
Mm.
really hard to write a book
Yeah.
and it takes a lot of time.
Mhm.
This book, The Law Firm of Your Dreams, took 4.5 years to write.
Yeah.
So it's hard. But if you write a book and it becomes a masterpiece, then it's the cornerstone of all of your marketing. That rather than asking someone, Andy, will you send me work? What I'm going to do is send you copies of my books and say, Andy, I just want to help you. I want to give you my books. I want to give you my monthly print newsletter.
Mhm.
And if down the road you send me a case or two, fine. But if you don't, that's fine too. In other words, take it away from what they can do for you and think your mindset should always be, what can I do for them? What can I give as opposed
Right.
to what can I take? And when you adopt that mindset, including in your marriage, and you say, okay, everyone, Andy, in our society looks at everything as transactional. Like, what am I getting out of this? What about in our marriage if we thought, instead of what can I get out of this marriage, what can I give to this marriage? And without any expectation of getting anything in return, your sole objective is to make your wife the happiest person in the world every single day.
Mhm.
And what happens, Andy, when you give without any expectation of getting anything in return, it comes back tenfold. So you turn out to be the luckiest person in the world. And that's the objective, I think, of every single relationship that we have. What
Mhm.
can I give to help this person? So when I do speaking events for other lawyers and law firms, I'll say, well, what can I do a focus group for your law firm? And they'll be like, what, why do you want to do that? And I was like, well, I just thought that we could work together. Maybe I'll handle the expenses. We'll show you ways of unique insights in your case that maybe you haven't thought about. And then we'll do it together. They're very cynical at first, and they'll be like, wow, that focus group was amazing. I learned so much about my case. And then what happens is they say, by the way, would you meet with our senior founder? And he'd like to meet with you and see if we can explore some referral relationships. So
Mhm.
rather than asking the big business in the state of New York for business, I'm simply giving value to them
Yeah.
without asking for anything. And then naturally it will come back. And Andy, one of the best things I've ever done in my business is, like, I'll go out to lunch with other attorneys and they'll be like, John, I don't want to refer you this case. I just want to pick your mind and explore the best way to handle this case. And I'll be like, okay, we'll spend 2 hours over lunch. I'll give them every piece of advice that I have. And it always turns out the same way. At the end of the lunch, they'll be like, you know what? Why don't you just handle this? It's too complicated for me. And so
Yeah.
that's the way. When you give without expecting anything in return, it just comes
Yeah.
back to you.